Thank you. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to be back on the MadFest stage. So because we're here to talk about change, future, I'm a futurist, this is what everyone expects me to open with, a slide that is all about what's different, right? It's 2023, so we're going to talk about AI. Last year, we would have talked about the metaverse, crypto, blockchain. A few years before that, we would have talked about whatever the latest tech trend du jour is. But what I'm actually going to do is underpin this presentation by saying, yeah, of course, we know that the world around us is changing faster than ever. Technological change, political change, social change, we've heard all about inflation, economic change coming. But also, we need to think about what isn't changing. And if you won't take it from me, perhaps you'll take it from this guy, who, of course, it's really easy to make look very evil, but he's also one of the richest men in the world. And Jeff Bezos, when he was being interviewed on a stage like this a few years ago, someone said, Jeff, what are you excited about? What's going to change the future of retail? And he said, I'm always asked this question, but no one ever asks me the alternative question, which is, as you can see behind me, what's not going to change in the coming decade? Because he says, for me and my leadership team at Amazon, that is the way more interesting question. Because he said, that's what we can build our business around. He said, we know with absolute confidence that in 10 years' time, whatever technology, wherever AI heads, wherever Internet of Things, big data, whatever it was they were talking about at the time, he said, I can guarantee you that no customer is going to come up to us and say, Jeff, love Amazon, just wish you had higher prices and slower delivery times. Right? He said, that is never going to happen. And of course, we saw that so viscerally during the pandemic. Suddenly the world is turned upside down overnight. And what do? We all rush on Zoom because we're craving human connection. Right? The basic human needs and wants that your businesses, that your clients' businesses serve, stay stable over time. The desire for reliable, trustworthy information. The desire for entertainment, the desire for status, to appear successful and attractive to those around us. These driving forces will stay stable over time. It doesn't matter what the latest technology trend is. But of course, right, things do change. Every day, you feel it, right? Every time you sit down at your laptop, right, you open up whatever social media platform you're going on, you're hit by a wave of new product launches from your competitors, from your clients' competitors, new brands bursting into the space. But actually, what I want you to take away from this presentation, we've got a whole bunch of trends, a whole bunch of innovation case studies we can look at. But the bigger picture, right, is that there's actually a secret to navigating the overwhelm that we all feel. And that secret is actually the very innovations which are making us feel so overwhelmed. Because what I want you guys to take away is, as I said, forget the trends that I'm going to share, but the underlying message is it is these very innovations which you can look at to start anticipating the future, to start spotting future trends. And the reason why this works is because we live in an expectation economy. Right? And as Paul said, this is, I think, the third or fourth time I've stood up on a MadFest stage. This slide is always in my presentations because it stays the same. So change the brands, right? I can put OpenAI on there now. But the idea is that customer expectations are set by their experiences. Right? And we know this, it's the old cliche, right? Everyone is competing against the speed and low prices of Amazon. Right now, everyone's competing against the intelligence and availability and the human soundingness of OpenAI. Right? The minute you've experienced something, that raises your bar around your expectations around the basic human needs and wants that your business is serving, right? Across categories. And you know this, right? If you're pitching a client, you tell your clients, if you're a bank, you're not just competing against the other banks, you're competing against the design of Apple, the sense of community of Airbnb, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing, of course, is because we see that it's not just expectations, but it's also behaviors. Right, I just love this example. This is a genuine newspaper clipping from a newspaper in Boston in the late 60s, where it was actually newsworthy that people went to the park for a jog. Right? Why would you go and run with no destination? And you could have said the same thing about meditation, mindfulness, right, and a whole load of other things that people are doing now that we know, if they speak to a basic human need and want, right, in this case, the desire for wellness, right, for well-being, physical fitness, they're likely to spread. And so this is what I've spent the last 3 years doing with my co-author here, Rohit, based over in the US. We spent the last 3 years talking to ultimately the entrepreneurs, the brands, the businesses, the instigators, we call them in the book, that are raising people's expectations around certain basic human needs and wants. Right, so we published this book, it's got 30 chapters, it's super easy to read. We launched it at South by Southwest a few months ago. I'm just going to pick out 4 chapters with you, which I'm really excited to share with you, because I think they point towards a future direction for marketing that you can use. Right, and this is probably my favorite chapter in the book, because it really challenges how we think about marketing. Because I'm guessing pretty much everyone here in the room, we've grown up in an era where we intuitively know that natural is best, right? You think about Whole Foods, right? You think about whatever, Gucci, right? Gucci are not flaunting their synthetic fibers, right? They're telling you this luxury cashmere, right? The side of a slope in Nepal where the goats were harvested or whatever. Natural is what we think of as luxury. But of course, actually, a lot of the natural things we eat aren't very luxurious. They're certainly not very high status, right? You think about chicken. Right? We all kind of pretend that it doesn't happen, but eating chicken is a pretty horrific experience for the chickens, right? They grow up in these horrible places. They're slaughtered. Right? And you will have seen probably 2 weeks ago that Upside Foods in the US had the cultivated meat, right? So this is lab-grown chicken behind me, approved for sale to American consumers, right? It's been coming for the last few years. We've gone from a $500,000 lab-grown hamburger a few years ago. This, just 2 weeks ago, was cleared for sale in the US, Upside Foods. Of course, the value proposition of this chicken is it's not from chicken, right? The climate footprint is lower. The ethical footprint is basically non-existent, right? The cells are grown in a lab. It's cleaner. There's less risk of disease because it's just grown in a reactor in Oakland, California. So it's a better chicken. If you think about chicken, many of us probably still deny the fact that we still eat chicken, we kind of become comfortable with this. What I really love is this example, because this is lab-grown foie gras from a French startup, right? Of course it's a French startup. They raised $50 million earlier this year to scale their lab-grown foie gras. Because I'm guessing even if you eat meat in this room, and probably that's most of you, we've got a few vegetarians, most people eat meat still, I'm guessing not that many people are that comfortable with eating foie gras, right? That we kind of, is beyond our ethical, tolerance level. But when it comes to lab-grown foie gras, you got an interesting question. Why wouldn't you eat it, right? If it's rich, delicious, indulgent, you like that fatty saltiness, why wouldn't you eat it, right? No goose was harmed in the making of this foie gras. Right, and we see this again and again, sector after sector. I could have picked any number of examples here, lab-grown diamonds, right? But I love this example because it just, it's so obvious, right, when you read their slogan. This is from Vitro Labs. They're based in London, founded by an Icelandic entrepreneur. And as you can read, a single biopsy from this cow can make millions of handbags. So they take the cells from a cow, they grow sheets of leather, still has that leather smell, still has that leather durability. It's not like vegan leather, which is actually all plastic, right, and is going to, never degrade in the ground. So ethically, environmentally, this is a much cleaner product, but it's fake. And so the question that I would ask you guys to think about is when you're talking to your clients, I think this is so challenging if you're a luxury brand, right? If you're a brand that embraces natural. We've all seen the pictures of the happy cows running through the fields. And we all know it's rubbish, but that's the marketing image that we've been sold, right? Natural is best, natural is premium. What does it look like if in this new era of synthetic biology and new materials, the exact opposite is true, and actually fake is the luxury product? I think that's a super interesting question to have with your team. Okay, next trend, we've got a whistle-stop tour. We've got 4 more trends to get through in 10 minutes. I'm going to go very quickly. This was actually a trend that I think I presented for the first time here at MadFest in about 2017. And then it was a kind of comedic trend, where we're thinking about, look, imagine if you became friendly with a chatbot. And it was kind of just after the Black Mirror episode, and everyone thought it was really weird. Now, you have people like this. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands as to who knows who this is, because I don't want to incriminate anyone, but this is Karin Madjuri, who's a Snapchat influencer with 2 million followers. 98% of them are men, so you can read into the type of content that she puts out. And she, a few weeks ago, made headlines because she released Karen AI. So she cloned herself, right? And for $1 a minute, of course, $1 a minute, you can chat to Karen AI. And she tweeted, I think it was last week, she's now got 20,000 virtual boyfriends. Right, so 20,000 people have signed up to chat to this virtual girlfriend who they know is an AI, but based on her, based on her tweets, based on her posts. What I love about this is the outrage she kind of faux expressed when it turned out that all these people were having not safe for work conversations with her chatbot, and she was like, that wasn't what we wanted it to do. And you're kind of thinking, really, £1 a minute? Like, what were you expecting? Anyway, so we can laugh about this, and we still make a joke about virtual companions. But think about this, right? Many of you will have seen Snap released My AI, rolled it out a few months ago, I think in mid-February, and just like literally in the last 2 weeks, they released this update saying what happened in the first 3 months of giving people an AI friend to talk to, basically. And you can see behind me, 150 million people have exchanged over 10 billion messages in the first 3 months of Snapchat My AI. So this is now mainstream behavior already. Right, and the question we ask in the book is I can make jokes, and it's fun in presentations to kind of imagine these sad guys texting with Karen AI and say, isn't it funny that you don't have a virtual girlfriend, or maybe some of you do, but this is this kind of dystopian world we're heading into. But the question I would ask you guys to think about is, if you're building this kind of thing, how could you flip this narrative, and how could you build a virtual companion that is supportive, like Wobot, which is a cognitive behavioral therapy chatbot created by a Stanford psychologist, which during the pandemic, stepped into the void when people couldn't access mental health, support, right? And you have these chatbots that are actually, and there's loads of peer-reviewed studies coming out about these now, where they do genuinely support and improve people's mental health. So again, the question I would ask you guys to think about is, this is coming, this behavior, it's already here, it's only going to get bigger. How might your marketing change? But also the other question is, how could you make sure that you're creating these virtual characters that encourage social interaction, right? That encourage positive behaviors rather than the opposite? AI. Had to talk about it, didn't we? As a futurist, 2023 MadFest. So again, super quick, because I think you guys will have all seen so many of these examples, but I just want to tie it together in a narrative that you can use to talk about it internally or with your clients. One of the examples that, again, many of you will have seen that made headlines recently was this song that went viral, which purported to be from Drake and The Weeknd, right? This unreleased song. It was only released on TikTok, racked up millions of views, and what happened? Right, Universal Music cracked down instantly and said, whoa, 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 whoa. Because it turned out that what this song was just some guy called Ghostwriter, right? Kind of gives it away, the name. And basically, he'd used one of these voice cloning apps, just fed them Drake's and The Weeknd's voices, and created this song, synthesizing their voice, kind of deep fake voice clone, and set it to music and released it. And everyone's like, whoa, we're in this whole new world, right, where anyone can say anything. And of course, there's two ways to respond to this. Right? There's the way Universal Music did, which is slap it down, say, let's take this offline, pull it from all the streaming platforms. Or I thought it was super interesting, right, what happened a few days later when Grimes came out and said, I don't have a label, I'm independent. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to encourage my fans to create songs with my deep fake versions of my voice. And more than that, I'm going to split the royalties 50-50 with any ones that I then go on and release. Right, and she's now got it. You can go online, you Google her voice clone, you can create a song. If she likes it and wants to release it with you, you'll split the royalties. Right, and we've seen this before, right? Think about Lady Gaga in the kind of social era, right? Co-creating and empowering your fans, your super fans, to become, to feel like they're part of this journey with you. Of course, it's a way of attracting, evangelical fans. And then just last week, again, saw the future of marketing, right, and how this kind of augmented creativity, how this democratization of creativity is going to play out. You can now see Richard Branson announced that now J.Lo is the brand ambassador for Virgin Voyages, and you can now go onto the Virgin Voyages website, you type in your name, you type in your friends' names that you want, you type in the occasion, so whatever, it's Tom's 50th birthday next month, we all want to go on a cruise, and they'll get this personalized video invite saying, hey, John, want to come on Tom's 50th birthday? Come on the cruise with me. said by J-Lo, right? So personalized, marketing done at scale by celebrity deepfakes is the era that we have in front of us. And I just want to stick one more example into the presentation, because if you've got nothing else, if none of the trends resonate with you, you can have so much fun with this app. This is my favorite app at the moment. It's called memecam.io, if you want to take a photo of it. Basically, you pull it up on your phone, you take a photo, leave a bit of space at the top, and it applies a meme, right? Just all that text comes automatically within a second. This is our daughter in the playground on the weekend. It kind of blows my mind that we've surpassed the Turing test. We spoke about the Turing test for decades, right? This was going to be the moment when AI became kind of, going to change everything. And we kind of blew through it, right? We now have your camera being able to add memes, and they're not always amazing, but they're pretty funny a lot of the time. They're pretty sexist and like gender tropes, right? It's very biased, like, as we know, AI can be. But we've kind of cracked the code, or computers have kind of cracked the code of humor, and we barely even notice it. It's now just become part of our experience. And again, it goes back to this idea, you see these innovations, and super quickly, they just become expected. So a question I would ask you guys to think about that Grimes and Drake and The Weeknd examples. How are you going to respond? How are your clients going to respond in an era where basically everyone has digital creative superpowers? Final trend I want to show you is just going back to kind of sustainability purpose, of course, because that's taken a bit of a backseat. Now AI is sucking the oxygen out of the room. But of course it is, as a few people have mentioned on various stages, it still is the topic that we need to be talking about consistently. And again, thinking about where is this heading, right? Where is the conversation around sustainability heading? To do what I always do, look at the examples, right? Look at where the instigators, look at where the pioneers are taking this conversation, because you can start to see where the rest of the market is going to be headed. Right, so we started to see earlier this year, I forgot to be wearing them on stage, but this is a pair of the world's first circular shoe, right? So it's this amazing, it's called the Regenerative, and the whole concept of this shoe is it is 100% natural, right? They've got this amazing GIF on their site. You could grind it up and put it in your garden, and it's entirely nutrient-based, right? There are no toxic substances in any part of the shoe. It's 100% circular, right? And that's on the product level. It's a regenerative sneaker. But we see it in some of, again, the pioneers, right, coming out. So every business worth its salt has got its net zero 2050, or they keep on bumping them back, commitment. Right? But IKEA came out and said, we want to be more than just net zero. Our plan is to be climate positive by 2030 or 2050, whenever it is their deadline is. But again, look, I'm sure there are people with way more scientific credibility who will pull that, that aspiration apart. But the point I would make is when it comes to understanding where the market is heading, they're going beyond, saying it's not just about doing less bad anymore, it's about doing more good. Right? And again, probably the iconic example, right, which you'll all be familiar with to end the presentation, the final example is, of course, Patagonia, right, where the guy last year said, look, I don't want to IPO, I don't want to sell the business, I'm getting old, I'm going to donate my shares to this perpetual purpose trust, which will take ownership of the shares and will be locked in. The profits of Patagonia will be legally locked in to fighting the climate crisis. Right? And that's a huge shift in terms of the very structure of the kind of capitalist economy. But of course, the point of this, from my perspective and hopefully from yours, is not that every business is going to be like Patagonia. Right? Of course, it's very unique circumstances. But you can start to see when you look at these three examples, right, whether it's on a product level with Degenerate or on a bigger business level, you can start to see, right, where the conversation around sustainability is going to be headed, because, right, your customers don't care how difficult those commitments are to make. All they care about is your competitor is making them. Right? And I see a few people taking photos. If you want a copy of a presentation, my email is addressed on the final slide. Feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn or email me. I'm happy to share the presentation with anyone afterwards. But look, the point is I could have picked any number of trends and innovations. There are thousands of innovations crossing our screens every day. It's just the tip of the iceberg. But I hope that as well as some kind of useful, practical trends for the months and years ahead, I've also, as I started the presentation by saying, given you this new way of seeing the world. Right? We all feel like the pace of change is accelerating, it's harder than ever to keep up, yada, 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 all the shit we read about every single day, every futurist says it. But what I want to give you is this way of seeing the world that says there is actually a way of navigating through this overwhelm. And it comes from looking at the very innovations which threaten to overwhelm us, because those are what tell us what's going to be coming next. And the final thing is to say, the only future you can make, right, we can all make, but you're responsible for making it with your clients, is the one that we can imagine. So that's the other reason for looking at innovations, is because they make this conversation super accessible. You can talk about regenerative agriculture or whatever, or you can show 3 examples, and people get it. So I hope you guys can take some insights from this. You're all trend watchers now, and thank you very much for having me, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.